Hey everyone, welcome back to the vlog. Like my new background, kitchen, galley, whatever they call it. So I'm just going to experiment with a few camera angles and stuff like that. A couple of people have been asking about what I do for a living. And it's quite a good topic because I'm living the dream, more or less. I'm 46 years old. I'm more or less retired. Um, but it's important to understand the history about where I started. So I've been in England 5 years. In fact, we're about to apply for citizenship. Yes, I'm about to swear my allegiance to the Queen. So yeah, been here 5 years. So when we got here, we both started working because we had to survive. We weren't allowed under our visas, weren't allowed to obtain any kind of benefit, which is fine. I didn't want to anyway. So first job I got was like picture framers in Manchester, and then I got a job with the Canal River Trust because I went canal crazy, at the time. So I volunteered with the CRT, and then I got a job with the CRT just as a fundraiser. But and then so a couple of years down the track, my partner got a promotion with work, but that meant he had to move from Manchester to basically London. So I used his um, increase in pay or promotional pay, if you like, to fund the upgrades to the boat. I'd saved all my pennies up from my work at the CIT to buy that dump of a cruiser, right? And then use his promotion money to upgrade the boat, buy a stove and all those sorts of things. Because I wanted to travel. The whole idea of me getting a boat in the first place was so I could see England. It was so expensive though. I remember when we first got here, we used to go for weekends away, and I remember us spending hundreds of pounds on weekends away, and I thought this is just ridiculous. I'm like, there's got to be a better way to see England, and lo and behold, there is. They're called canals. So I wanted to travel. So Duncan, that's his name, Duncan. Duncan, in my best British accent, Duncan, moved down south, and I moved onto the boat. Well, I renovated the boat, and then moved onto the boat, and then started traveling. And when I first started traveling, I started with a very, very strict budget of £200 a month. So the sacrifices that we both made at the time enabled me to be able to have that lifestyle and be able to travel around the canals and see England. But we talked about and agreed on a strict budget of about £200 a month. And out of that came my petrol, my license, and my food. And there was very little left over for anything else. I couldn't even buy myself a beer at the various canal side pubs. That's how strict I was. I had to be. I had no choice. Duncan basically gave me a budget of £200 a month. That was it. It was really unfortunate because there's a lot of places that I missed out seeing. For example, what's the one that springs to mind? Lichfield, Shugborough Estate. When I first arrived in Grey Haywood, um, I, I really wanted to go and see the Lichfield photo studios at Shugborough Estate. This was pre-COVID, of course, but I couldn't afford it. I couldn't afford the entry ticket because it just wasn't. I couldn't budget. It wasn't in my budget. So even if it was £20, I couldn't afford it. £20, hell, that's 10% of my overall monthly budget. So at that point, I decided, well, I'd heard about, the boat tubers and Patreon and all that kind of stuff. So I signed up for Patreon. And over a period of a few months, I acquired quite a number of patrons. And patrons were paying me a monthly amount. And eventually it got to like £200 a month. So that was my budget for cruising and stuff. Which means I had a little bit of extra to pay for extra things like entry tickets. But then there's this constant push or constant, feeling that I had to create content for those patrons all the time. You know what I mean? And it started stressing me out and it started triggering my anxiety. So I got rid of it. In fact, one trigger was one woman who said she absolutely loved my content and pledged £20 a month, or $20 at the time. Tell me how fabulous I was. And then the day after, I got really lousy, awful message from her saying, you didn't have much content. I don't really like your channel now. I'm going. And that sent me into a spiraling depression. So I got rid of it. I'm like, I don't need this. I'd rather be poor and travel around the country than have to put up with this bullshit. Luckily for me, 4 of them, I think I ended up having like 15 or 20 patrons, all paying me various, amounts each month. 4 of them stayed on as my sponsors. And now, over the past year and a half, my sponsors and I have formed really good friendship. I don't mention them because they kind of prefer not to be in the limelight. They just they kind of said to me, we're sort of friends now because now the amount of content that I create, I still create shitloads of content. It's just, you guys don't see it. 90% of the content that I publish gets sent to my sponsors, not published for the general public. So I send them photos. We have live chats. We have live video chats. Any places of like historic significance, landmarks, all that kind of stuff. Oh, sure, I'll record a bit publicly, but most of it goes privately to my sponsors. So they're more sort of friends now. I've got to know them over the years. They all live in the States. There's 4 of them. They all live in the States. Yeah, they sort of, one of them said to me, well, actually, so 2 of them want to come over and buy a bloody narrowboat in 2 years, 3 years time, 4 years time. And they said, well, we'll happily keep on sponsoring you or funding you, providing you play the guinea pig, the part of the guinea pig, because we want to know everything there is to know about bloody canal boats. I'm like, oh, okay. So that's why you hear me talking about, this inverter, that generator, this battery, that battery, that sort of stuff. I can afford to do all this because I have sponsorship. I don't like to call them sponsors though. Like, they've become mates because we talk all the time. We chat. I send them voice clips on WhatsApp all the time. And like I said, photos and content that you guys don't see. Like, I record so much video content, but I leave it all as unlisted and send it to my patrons or my sponsors, my mates. They're sort of my mates now. A couple of them are going to come over. One's going to come over in, I think, September. That's Charlie. He's going to come over in September. Hopefully COVID will sort of be subsided and you'll be able to actually get a flight. So he's going to come over in September. Another one's coming over in a couple of years' time. Another one wants to retire in 5 years, so wants to come by a narrowboat. So I'm the guinea pig, more or less, So that's why I got a project boat because, well, part of the reason, I like keeping busy as well. And I love it. I love being challenged. So that's part of the reason I got the project, but also it gives my sponsors a chance to learn about everything narrowboats. So engines and blacking and surveys and steel and batteries and showers and whatever it is, So I consider myself extraordinarily lucky that I've got such a thing because I'm basically retired. I'm 46. I'm basically retired, and living the dream. And I know that's going to infuriate a lot of people, but that's hey, that's the way that the world has dealt my hand. I would say it's a really, you can still create yourself a good living, but the problem now is when I first heard about BoatTubers and Patreon was like 3 or 5 years now. So it would have been when I first kind of discovered canals. So like 5 years ago, 4 years ago, when I discovered people like Cruising the Cut and Narrowboat Experience and Robbie Cumming and Foxes Afloat and all those sort of people, they all have Patreon accounts. They'll have extra funding provided by patrons. But of course, back then, boat vlogging was only a new thing. Now, the market is completely saturated. There are dozens, maybe even hundreds of boat tubers out there now, So I'd say to you, if you want to live this lifestyle, be prepared to make a lot of sacrifices. Remember, I've just spent 2 years in a 24-foot yogurt pot with no headroom, no shower, no oven, and for the first 6 months sleeping on bits of foam. So I made a lot of sacrifices to be able to lead this lifestyle, and now I'm sort of reaping the rewards. With a lovely new boat. We've been able to save the money that we've otherwise spent on accommodations and rent and things like that. I mean, my other half, he still lives down south. So for the past couple of years, we've essentially had a part-time relationship, which has been really hard, especially over winter. During summer, he was able to come up and spend the weekend with me, drop off my Amazon deliveries, that sort of thing. But in winter, it was really hard because it's such a small space. We tried and we just could not, we just used to bitch and argue with each other, and it just didn't work. Him trying to, stay with me on the boat during winter was just, I just couldn't do it. Now I've got the new boat, that's why I'm creating an office for him, so he can work. But I've got plenty of stuff to do on the boat, exterior, interior, engine, whatever it is, and he can still work while we're floating around. It means we're going to be reunited for the first time in 2 years. And we'll, again, save the money now from that rent. Like, it was costing us like £1,200 a month to live in Manchester. That's cheap. But then £1,200 plus what he was paying, which is another £700. So it's costing us £2,000 a month. So we'll split. So that's, again, part of the reason why I sort of moved on to the boats, as well as giving the place for the cats to live as well. Because when we first moved to England and brought the cats over from Australia, we almost gave the cats up for adoption because we found it impossible to find a rental property that would allow us to have pets, which I think is absolutely bloody insane. But being new to the country, we didn't want to break any rules, so eventually we did find a place. So that was good. Crikey, I can still remember, it was the worst night's sleep I've ever had. When we both sort of decided we'd have to give up Kinka and Electra for adoption, because we didn't see any other choice. We didn't see any other way out, So that, again, was another reason why we want to get the boat, so that they've got somewhere that they can call home, and we're not answerable to landlords and stupid real estate agents, So there's a bit of an explanation about sort of where I am now, why I'm able to afford the things that I can and do and all the rest of it. But like I said, if you want to leave this lifestyle, you've got to be prepared to make a lot of sacrifices. And if you want to make money out of doing YouTube stuff, you've got to find, now that the market is really saturated, you've got to really find something really unique. There are a couple of opportunities, I would say, to those out there considering the notion. I'm not going to mention what they are. It's up to you to do your own research and find out what they are. But there are a couple of ways you could, make money in a very saturated market. There are opportunities, you just got to find them. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Well, not really a nutshell, because we've been talking for almost 15 minutes now. But that's the story behind how I come to be where I am now. So, like I said, living the dream. I'm absolutely very humbled by it. Didn't expect this at all. But like I said, we've made a lot of sacrifices. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all I got to say, really. Um, yeah, okay. I'll see you later. That's all. I've finished my rant now. I'm like, is there anything else I got to say about the topic? No, that's pretty much it. That's the story. So, um, yeah. Thanks for watching, everyone. Catch you all soon. See ya.